Well, December is the season of giving, and one way we as Nevadans give is through charitable donations. Today, we're exploring the best ways to optimize your gifts to benefit the organizations you cherish. That's this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstadt, Cashman Equipment, and additional supporting sponsors.
Every year, millions of Americans open their hearts and their wallets in December to give to nonprofits. And over the entire year in Nevada, we give $1.5 billion in gifts and 60 million volunteer hours to local charities. But year-end giving provides charities with a boost while offering a financial benefit to taxpayers. To explore the ways you can give, we are joined by two nonprofits. Casey Brooks is the executive director of Sign Design Theater Company. This small nonprofit combines sign language and performing arts to increase awareness of deaf culture in Southern Nevada. The organization is completely volunteer-run, teaching about 60 students a year with an operating budget of just $25,000 annually. We are also joined by Three Square's CEO, Brian Burton. Three Square is one of the largest nonprofits in the state, operating with an annual budget around $85 million. Since its founding in 2007, the food bank has served hundreds of millions of meals to people in need. Rounding out our panel to discuss the benefits of local giving, we are also joined by Stacy Wedding, CEO of Professionals in Philanthropy, Julie Murray, CEO and principal of the Moonridge Group, and Russ Cost, Director of Business Development at Piercy, Bowler, Taylor & Kern. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Stacy, I want to start with you. At Professionals in Philanthropy, you work with both the donors and you're working with the nonprofits and the charities as well.
Absolutely.
Can you give us an idea, just spectrum, across the entire spectrum here, what is our culture of giving here in Nevada?
I think the best way to encapsulate it would be evolving. And I say that because you look at the incredible population growth just the state of Nevada and Southern Nevada has experienced the last several years. And I think in many ways with that growth has come huge opportunity to engage new donors. And yet our poor nonprofit sector is struggling to keep up with the demand, right? Community needs are increasing as population growth increases. There's a demand for more services and programs. And sometimes they're just running, like the hamster on the hamster wheel, right? Trying to just keep up with that growth. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity with our culture. And I think there's also some great celebrations we have to look at along the way. And looking at two sort of examples of that, you've got just the recent announcement about the $155 million of private funding for the Home for the UNLV Medical School. So you've got something on a large scale with really large major funders funding that. And then you look on a smaller scale, it's something like Nevada's Big Give that lasted for about 8 years and brought together people on a smaller donor giving level, but raised close to $5 million and engaged 25,000 donors. So I think we have this incredible can-do giving spirit in the state of Nevada. I think it's about trying to, keep up with the growth that we're seeing.
And can-do spirit, and also, as you mentioned, most of our Nevadans here are not from Nevada. They're coming from other areas and have histories and cultural heritage from the places they were. Brian, I'm wondering, when we're looking at our donors here, then how do we reach and make sure that we're mobilizing donors that might have come from other areas?
I think we constantly have to educate the public through as much as we can through our public relations. But the best way, I think, is to reach out for volunteers to actually come in and experience. At Three Square, we had 34,000 volunteers last year. I think that's a great exhibit to what you're talking about, Stacy, with how much the community loves to help and serve our neighbors in need. But we also are constantly out telling the story, speaking to Rotary Club and different groups, and trying to get the younger people in, not just folks that you typically think of serving on your board of directors. They're important, but trying to look at the millennials and all of the folks that are really maybe not engaged and plugged in yet. But we constantly have to reach out. We do that every single day. And because of that number of volunteers, it's the equivalent of 71 full-time paid staff people a year. So Three Square would be about at half strength without that kind of volunteer support.
Julie, Moonridge Group, also working with donors and also working with the nonprofits and charities as well. Can you give us some context on how we rank as a state, both on the giving side, but also the volunteer side as well here?
Absolutely. Wallet Hub just produced their most recent study that came out about Monday, Tuesday of this week, and it showed that we're 46th in the nation per person for giving. But I don't believe that because I think there actually is so much giving occurring that's just not being tracked. And when the Lindsay Institute came on board with Brookings, they started tracking things about 10 years ago. And I believe that there's so much generosity here, but people are doing it humbly and quietly. And so I don't know if that 46th ranking is correct, but I'd like to think that we are doing better than that, because one area that I see significant growth in is in corporate giving. Is many corporations, instead of having philanthropy and volunteerism as a nice to have, maybe we'll add it to our company. It's a business imperative. And those corporations that build profit and purpose equally, they care about how they treat their employees, they care about the community, the environment, their footprint. Those are the companies who are doing well. They're attracting and retaining employees. They're getting their brand out there. So I'm seeing so many shifts in the way that businesses are addressing corporate philanthropy.
And that's a great point. We're talking about giving. It's not just individual giving through individual means. We're talking about employee giving through corporations. We're also talking about giving through family foundations that individuals donate to. Right. Casey, you're a very small nonprofit. We're lucky here to have at this table one of the largest and one of the smallest, as we said in the intro. But what are some of the challenges, whether it's an individual donor or a corporate donor, what are some of the challenges you're finding in really finding donors?
Well, one of the main challenges is just keeping the money coming in. Some people give once and then they never give again. And then some people like to give all the time. And so, a challenge for us is just keeping the lights on, because without funding, we would have to close our doors. And I just wanted to touch base on what you said. We have found that like Amazon and Smith's, all these corporations have these opportunities now where you can have a percentage go to a nonprofit. And we have our families sign up and getting that word out that if you buy on Amazon regularly, you can pick a nonprofit for it to go to. And that's really helped us in the last couple of years.
Amazon Smiles.
Amazon Smiles, yes.
And Stacey, Casey mentions that to keep the lights on is really where donations are going.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're looking at a larger spectrum here of nonprofits. Where are a lot of donations then going to? Are they simply for kind of those operation expenses, or are they going more to special programs? Or
I think it's actually, there's a huge trend in donors want impact and return on investment. And so with that, their investments tend to start at least in the program or specific project. They want to know my dollars are going to feed this many people, provide, this many beds for heads, whatever that is. They want those specifics. And I think it's a challenge for nonprofits of all sizes. We need donors, right? Those programs don't exist without the human capital, without the staff and the paid staff and people who are trained, have the tools to do what they want to do, the technology to actually deliver the services at the level the donors expect. So I would love to see, I think we have a handful of examples of people, corporate and individuals that will invest in capacity building and operating, but I think that's fewer than I'd like to see. I'd love to see a shift in that. And sometimes that takes time, right? I mean, you're a donor, you want to start out small and let me give to something specific and make sure you deliver and you put that money to good use. And then over time, after that trust is built, perhaps I'm willing to give you an unrestricted donation for you to use in the way that's most important for you.
And Brian, because we're talking about year-end giving here, year-end donations, when we look at an organization as big as Three Square, $85 million budget, $100 looks like, maybe the assumption is it doesn't go very far, but tell me against the opposite of that.
It is the opposite of that. We're so fortunate because we have leverage with the 120,000 square foot warehouse we have. We're able to buy in bulk. We have opportunities through the Feeding America network to leverage donations from neighboring states, as well as Kraft, General Mills, the national funders. And so throughout the year, we can convert $1 into 3 meals. Now through the end of the year, because of generous matching donors like Boyd Gaming, Barrett Gold, and United Healthcare, we're able to double that. So $1 equals 6 meals. And because of our size, and we're a little advantage that way. We can convert 94 cents of every dollar into direct programming. Now, that's not to say that nonprofits who maybe have 80 cents of every dollar are doing a poor job. Not at all. It's not the only criteria, and I'm glad Stacy mentioned that. But be smart about looking at your giving. You want to be able to ask around and do a little research and see which nonprofits are high performing and are you really stewarding your gift well.
And Casey, to Brian's point here, right, is large nonprofit with a lot going towards programs, but you are a completely volunteer-based organization. How much of a donation is then directly going to what you are trying to do for your mission?
100% of it goes to what we're trying to do. It is to pay our rent, it's to buy costumes, it's to provide community service. 100% of our donations is what we need to, like I said, to keep the lights on and to keep going. We have a certain level of professionalism that we want to have, and that takes money. We want the kids to look the best that they can look, and so yes, we need the funds to do that.
Julie, besides the direct benefits we're talking about here of where donations go, if we can talk a little bit about the overarching benefits here, economically, socially, even culturally, of where, when we're looking at donation total to our state is doing. You give us some context there.
Sure. Dr. Jessica Word from UNLV's Greenspun School reported earlier this week that there are 8,715 nonprofits throughout the state. And so many of those are struggling with how to find sustainable income. And what we're seeing in giving is that nonprofits are looking at ways to get multi-year gifts, of how to use more pro bono gifts, more in-kind, more volunteerism. Brian uses volunteerism so brilliantly at 3 Square. So we're seeing nonprofits being innovative in how they approach a funder. I know that 2 innovative things we were chatting about earlier was the new slot machine at the Cosmopolitan with Every Gaming, where you can make a donation in your gaming experience. And there's also the giving machine at the downtown Summerlin Mall. So I believe that innovation is what we'll be seeing in 2020 from both the nonprofits about how they're fundraising and from funders. How are they going to get the most social impact for the dollars donated? Good
point. And Stacy, let's talk about just the tech impact here, right?
Okay.
Vending machines in Summerlin and Southern Nevada, but we're talking about mobile applications, mobile technology, we're talking about online commerce. These are all potentially shifts for donors. Are we seeing that locally, that really it's changing kind of the paradigm of how individuals are giving?
I think we're seeing it. I think, though, when you talk to many nonprofits, they're saying they're having a tough time keeping up with the rapid technology changes and having the capacity, once again, right? Having the tools, because the stuff is not for free, right? It costs money. Having the tools, getting the training to do it. So I think you're finding nonprofits of all sizes saying, how do we keep up with, technology is changing daily. How do we keep up with it? When you look nationally, so online giving still, and sort of any kind of that of mobile giving is happening. It's between 6% and 13%, regardless of what study you look at. And people are surprised to hear that because they think much more is happening in those lines. The thing is, though, it's steady and incremental growth. So I think that's going to continue to increase. When you look across generations, the baby boomer generation and the matures generation, they will look at a website, but tend to still write out that check or do something a little more traditional. And you look at even Gen X, millennials, the new Gen Z generation, and it's all about, let me make a gift online, right? Let me do it through social media. So I think we're going to see this as donors age out, we're going to start to see an increase in online giving.
Well, Stacy, thank you very much for being part of the show. We really appreciate it. We're going to transition and have Russ Cost come on and talk more about individual giving and maximizing donations. But before we do that, Julie, I wanted to ask you, we're talking about the generational shifts here. And I'm wondering, when we are looking at not only Generation X, but we are looking at millennials and we are looking at younger generations too, are we seeing monumental shifts in how they give and what they are actually giving to?
What's interesting, right now there's a group of millennials who are going in and working with the police department on the highest crime neighborhood where there's graffiti and tagging going on. And these millennials don't want to stand for that anymore. So they are rallying together, giving their time, bringing together cash donations and working with the police. And I believe that what we'll be seeing with millennials or Gen Z is that they'll be activists. They'll be out in the field doing the work, not only donating money, but really standing up for what they believe. So that's one instance of a neighborhood that's high crime, but we're seeing a lot of millennials getting very involved with climate change, with water and the environment. So you gotta love the millennials. They are active, they're speaking their mind, and they're adding on the cash through the technology giving. They're a force to be reckoned with for philanthropy.
So Russ, thank you for joining our panel. We really appreciate it. And I wanted to ask you right off the bat, we were talking a lot about generational shifts and kind of some of the trends that we're seeing here. Let's get right to the advice here. Our viewers that are watching right now that might want to donate towards the end of the year, or maybe they're just looking at setting something up for next year. What's your advice for them?
Well, first, make wise decisions. Look at the charities that you want to be involved with or are already involved with. From the charity's perspective, the best thing they can get is cash. It really is. The cash is fungible. It's one of the things that can be used in any area. From a tax-wise perspective, it depends upon the tax situation of the individual. One of the things we like to talk about from that perspective is if the individual's what I call the middle income range, then instead of giving cash, a tax-wise way of giving is to give an asset, appreciated assets like stock, or for those that are older, age 70 and a half or so, or above age 70 and a half, is giving gifts of IRAs, because then you avoid income. We have some seniors that are financially well off enough that they don't actually want that. They've been deferring that, and they have to take what's called a required minimum distribution. They have to take that every year, and that's extra income that they're taxed on. Right now, there's a law that allows for a senior to give, anybody over age 70 and a half, to give directly from their IRA directly to the charity, pay no income tax, and directly benefit that charity. It's one of the great tools we have for anybody over age 70 and a half. For those younger than 70 and a half, it's primarily looking at a tax-wise way of giving, okay? One of the things we like to talk about, and when we're talking with individuals about giving tax-wise, is
if I can stop you one sec, because we're talking a lot about taxes, and this is a big issue recently, and this is potentially another trend or a shift in how we are giving. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act potentially, at least the concern was, would restrict the amount of donations because there weren't the tax incentives there. And Brian, I want to go to you. Have you seen this since 2017 and it's been implemented, that we're seeing a reduction in donations?
We have not seen a reduction. There's been individual cases where folks have said, wow, I think I'm going to bundle my giving for every other year. That way I can exceed that standard deduction, which they increased, I believe, in that bill. And that way I get a little bit more tax benefit from it. But I think tax reasons are probably not the highest purpose that most people think that the motivation for people to give. I think particularly the community here in Nevada, people give because they want to. They love the community. They want to see the schools do better. They want to see seniors thrive. And so we have not seen much of a letdown on that. We've had a few donors, like I said, have changed sort of the timing of their gifts in order to maximize those deductions. But I love what Ross said about the IRA. There's so many creative ways where people can give. But no, we've not seen a letdown in donations.
And Julie, let's talk maybe more broader perspective here. Are we seeing any trends in just the nonprofit community in general here in Nevada where this tax cut or this tax act has actually reduced the amount of donations?
No, I haven't seen a reduction as well. What's interesting is I believe Brian speaks well about the spirit of the giver in Nevada, that they're giving to impact change, and the tax benefit is a nice addition, but they're giving from their heart. And what's interesting, though, what it is having the funder do is ensure that they're driving more impact, that they're getting metrics from the nonprofit, that at the beginning of the year, the nonprofit can track the number of lives impacted, understood the benefit that that donation has paid. So I believe what's happening is funders are getting more savvy with how to get more impact from every dollar donated.
Casey, give us an idea of your typical donor. Is this an annual donor? Are they giving once a year? Are you getting kind of more of a monthly donation?
We're all over the spectrum. We have people that give monthly. We have people that give once a year. A lot of our donors are alumni that used to be involved in the organization. Our parents are a lot of our donors. They volunteer their time and they help out with costumes and things that we need. So yeah, we see a lot of our funding coming from not so much of the random community members, but a lot of people that have been inspired, that have been involved in the organization, that have a personal connection to the organization. That's where we get a lot of our funding from, like our donors. They have that personal connection.
Gotcha. And Russ, Casey mentions the volunteer aspects of this. What kind of incentives do you have if you are volunteering your time to a nonprofit organization here in the state?
The volunteer is actually, in my mind, one of the most beneficial individuals impacting a charity because they're giving the most precious thing they have, their time. We're all each only given so much time on the planet, and for somebody to do that is an incredible commitment to the mission of the organization. So what happens when that individual gets involved as a volunteer, there's substantial benefits, obviously, to the charity in terms of using the resource there.
Are there tax write-offs or tax benefits you can get from volunteering?
Beyond the mileage that you can claim to and from and any personal outlay, no. It really comes back to, and this is echoing what Brian and Julie both said, ultimately giving is a personal commitment and a personal benefit that you actually get a benefit from it. Obviously the health, the feeling of changing a life is very empowering. With that said, I think the individual who commits their time has, Julie touched on this, there's a responsibility for the individual to understand that it is a job, that you're there to impact the charity in the way they need. And concurrently, the charity has a responsibility to ensure that your time as a volunteer is used wisely. As Julie mentioned, today, people are looking for more and more out of those charities, to look at them as well-run businesses and to understand that.
And Brian, we're talking about really a holistic approach here where you have an individual that's a donor and they're a donor in many different facets of what you're doing for an organization.
Right.
When you're looking at an organization as big as 3 Square, are you seeing that as a common trend?
Yes, I mean, there's so many ways. Hunger is such a uniting mission. It's not controversial, it's not partisan, so everyone believes in it. So if people don't have the cash to donate an hour of their time, 2 hours of their time, we have very dedicated people that donate their time as well as their voice. Advocacy is a big part of what we do. We were able, through some lobbying work, to bring in $100 million that we were about to lose through these new work requirements through SNAP in 2017. We were able to bring that to the attention of the legislature, write the bill, pass it. We applied for a waiver as a state. So that's $100 million that's coming back into our state. That's an economic stimulator. That helps everybody. And so, yeah, it is holistic, and I think the wise donor will ask, what are the range of ways that I can make an impact, as Julie said, in this community?
Julie, we just have a couple more minutes. The wise donor, as Brian said, if you are a wise donor, and you mentioned over 8,000 nonprofits here in the state, you want to do your own research and you want to be well vetted on who to give to.
Yes.
How do you do that in our state?
Leadership, leadership, leadership. I encourage a donor to look at who's running the organization, who is the leader of the nonprofit and who is the board chair, because so much boils down to their ability to sustain the organization, to deliver with excellence. So we always encourage donors to get acquainted with the leader who's running the organization.
And how does that work? If you call to Sign Design Theater, we're going to talk to Casey, and Casey's going to give us an idea of exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah, you're going to talk to me, and I'm going to tell you all about this wonderful organization and answer any questions that you might have, and encourage you to come and check us out. Check our website, look for when our performances are, just to kind of get to know who Sign Design Theater is. We've been in the Vegas community for over 35 years, and we're not going anywhere. So yeah, we want you guys to check us out, and if you call, yeah, absolutely, you'll get that personal touch, and I'll give you all the information that you need.
And then Julie, beyond that, for the data wonks, so to speak, the people that really like to get into the nitty-gritty of financials of organizations and kind of where they are, is there a database or anything we can access?
You know, if they access Charity Navigator or access the nonprofits Form 990, you can find so much about the organization and their health, their fiscal health, and their sustainability. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here, all of you. We really, really appreciate it. Now, if you at home would like to learn more about any of the topics that we've covered today, always check out our website. It's vegaspbs.org/Nevada-Week. You can also find us on social media at Nevada Week. Now, before we go, we've been talking a lot about the importance of giving throughout the show. Now, Vegas PBS is very proud to be one of the thousands of nonprofits that does call Nevada home. Now, on behalf of all of us here at the station and all the nonprofits that we have here in Nevada, we wanted to give you this special thank you for your support. Thank you very much.